Good day, everybody, and welcome to another edition of the Military and Foreign Affairs Network. I am your host, the voice of reason. Today we have entered day 177 of the ongoing war between the Russian Federation and Ukraine, and reports today over the last 24 hours out of the Russian camp indicate that the Russians have launched massive strikes over the last 24 to 48 hours against a variety of targets inside of Ukraine, both in the rear area, deep rear area of the Ukrainian military, and also along the entire front line. And this is running from northwest of Sloviansk all the way down towards the area near Mykolaiv. And early indications, at least from the Russian side, they're reporting that through the use of long-range multiple launch rocket systems, and more specifically, precision tactical airstrikes, we're seeing Russian aviation in the air continuing. But again, over the last 24 hours, the Russians believe that they have killed up to 500 Ukrainian service personnel, again, running along at various points along the entire front line. Now, if we hearken back a few months back, the Ukrainian military, the Ukrainian political apparatus was talking about losing upwards to 1 to 200 personnel a day. Then that had backed down at one point to 30 personnel, and where we're at now, it's hard to say. But these new Russian strikes, possibly in retaliation for some of the activity that the Ukrainians conducted in the Crimea, is maybe what we are seeing a response to at this point in terms of what is happening with these Russian strikes. Additionally, rather interesting, and before I get into that real quick, I do want to mention that the Ukrainians also are reporting that they have killed upwards to 300 Russian personnel and destroyed several Russian tanks and armored infantry fighting vehicles over the last 24 hours as well. So, where do you analyze this, and what is the correct number? Very, very difficult to say at this point. Both sides are being very hesitant about releasing their actual casualty figures, and at the same time, given the high intensity and nature of this war, of this very much industrialized war, modern war, that even the actual states themselves may not know the true losses of their own individual personnel. A lot of these tanks that are being destroyed, I mean, they're absolutely incinerating the bodies of the combat personnel in these, the amounts of high explosives that are being used in some of these bombs and missiles that are being used. You just will not find the remains, and it's very, very difficult to then ascertain true casualty count. So how is Russia coming to the conclusion that they've killed 500, and how are the Ukrainians coming to their own conclusion where they have killed 300 Russian personnel? Very, very difficult to ascertain at this point. But furthermore, in the Crimea, it would appear that Russian air defense forces are now responding to some of these Ukrainian attacks that have been going on inside of the Crimea. We know that there have been continued reports of fires and explosions breaking out at a variety of facilities in Crimea. We've heard about Russian air defense systems near the Kerch Straits, the Kerch Bridge, going active and firing at targets. We don't know if they have hit targets. The Russians are reporting that they've taken down some drones. But again, it does appear that the Russians are now trying to engage something within the vicinity of Crimea. Now, is it going to be effective? Are they going to be able to interdict whatever weapon system that is being used against targets in the Crimea and elsewhere in this ongoing conflict? Again, it's of my opinion These are not sabotage attacks by Ukrainian special forces, but indeed is some sort of long-range precision strike weapon system that is being used. ATACMS or some indigenous system that the Ukrainians have deployed in this ongoing conflict. We also have heard reports that the Ukrainians have attempted strikes near Belgorod as well. And ultimately, we don't know how effective those strikes were. We do understand, again, Russian air defense systems have gone on alert and have fired at possible targets that were inbound towards Russian targets. At least on the ground, the situation is not changing a lot. You continue to see this very, very slow but somewhat methodical Russian advance, especially in the east. In the west, where we had heard reports of the prospect of a Ukrainian counterattack towards Kherson, that appears to have fizzled out. I know at one point we were looking at this salient where the Russian forces were occupying this area, and we heard reports of supposed 3 Russian battalion tactical groups that had been enveloped in this area. Now we're not hearing about that. Now we're not hearing the Ukrainians discuss that as well. So it would seem that any sort of Ukrainian counterattack, especially on the western bank of the Dnieper River, has kind of fizzled out, possibly in response to Russia's reinforcement of this area. Obviously, we know that Russia moved another 10,000 troops into this area. They started conducting a uptick in tactical airstrikes and then also multiple launch rocket system strikes as well. So was that enough to stifle this Ukrainian buildup and incremental counterattacks that were being conducted by the Ukrainian military? And I'd say at this point, that's a very, very good possibility. We're not seeing a lot of movement in this area, but we will continue to monitor and report on this area as things warrant. Near Zaporizhia, just south at the Erdogar nuclear power facility, we continue to hear banter going back and forth, whereas both forces are alleging that both sides are attacking the nuclear power facility. It's very difficult for me, at least on the surface, to say that Russia is attacking its own forces in this nuclear power plant and risking the possible release of large amounts of radiation if there was some sort of accident. It seems more reasonable, at least on the surface, that Ukrainian forces are firing across the Dnieper River towards Russian targets on the eastern bank of the Dnieper River. Now, is anything possible? Yes, absolutely, of course, but it just doesn't make a lot of sense on why Russia would shell its own forces and attempt to cause damage to the nuclear power plant when they are looking at right now of the possibility of disconnecting it from the Ukrainian grid and assigning it to the Russian power industry and focus mainly on areas that they control and Russia proper. So just doesn't add up, but who knows? We'll see what happens and see if anything comes of it. Obviously, there was a lot of rhetoric around Chernobyl. There was a lot of talk about the possible additional release of radiation and causing damage to the Chernobyl area when Russian forces attempted its takeover of Kiev. And that also did not amount to much. It just never happened. It is not in either side's best interest to cause a major nuclear accident. It's just not. And it would be more likely that the Russians would utilize some sort of low-yield tactical nuclear weapon against Ukrainian forces as opposed to causing some sort of release of nuclear material at this power station. It's just the cost versus benefit. The cost is just entirely too high and just really doesn't make sense at this point. I think it's banter to create attention to the ongoing conflict. And at this point, I don't believe we will see a nuclear accident at this power facility. I think both sides, sanity is going to win out, and that should be prevented. But who knows? We'll have to see what happens. But that is pretty much it for today. Again, massive casualties have been reported by the Russian forces. We've also heard some anecdotal reports from the Ukrainian side as well that they have received some very, very intense Russian attacks over the past 24 hours. We have seen massive bombardments taking place near Kharkiv, and those attacks by Russian forces continue as we speak. So we will continue to watch, monitor the situation, and bring you balanced news reporting from both sides of the ongoing war. Thanks for joining us today. Have a good day.